On Monday, Xiomara Castro claimed victory in the Honduran presidential election. The first female president of Honduras represented the leftist Free Party, defeating conservative National Party candidate Nasri Asfora. Castro's victory put an end to 12 years of right-wing rule under a party whose leaders have been accused of rampant corruption and ties to illegal drug trafficking. Castro campaigned on rooting out this pervasive corruption, proposing a UN-backed commission to investigate charges. Castro's administration is likely to push a socialist agenda, including a universal basic income, consumer subsidies, and funding for social programs. Additionally, Castro plans to create a constituent assembly to rewrite the national constitution. Providing economic opportunity for the working class will likely pose a challenge to the Castro administration due to the heavy debt burden left by the previous administration. Expect Castro to seek help from the IMF, already having begun negotiations with the hope of attaining lower debt payments without raising taxes. The most recent round of nuclear negotiations took place throughout last week between Iran and these major powers in Vienna. Participants hope to revive the 2015 deal, which removes sanctions from the US, EU, and UN in return for limiting Iranian nuclear development to non-military purposes. Expect little progress to be made as Thursday saw Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett call for talks to stop immediately, citing reports of advanced uranium enrichment at this facility north of Qom. Tehran, however, maintains that it only enriches uranium at up to 20% purity, short of the 90% required for a nuclear weapon. Iranian diplomats have maintained the position that the removal of sanctions is tantamount and proceeded to submit 2 draft proposals during the talks. Despite Iran's expressed willingness to negotiate, optimism for a cohesive agreement remains low due to Israeli opposition to lifting sanctions and the lack of an active role being played by the US. The Gambia held presidential elections on Saturday. This was the nation's first election without former dictator Yahya Jammeh on the ballot. Although the previous election removed Jammeh from his 22-year tenure, the public has remained unsatisfied, blaming the Barrow administration for continued economic hardship. However, Barrow declared victory in this election with 53% of the vote. In a blow to the burgeoning democracy, opposition parties flatly rejected the results, alleging fraud and electoral irregularities. Expect demonstrations from opposition party supporters, as well as possible legal action against Barrow's administration in the coming weeks.